Finance Committee meeting. First thing I would like to do is let everyone up here at the podium introduce themselves to the people so we can let them know who's on the committee. We'll start with Mr. Pileski.
My name is Ted Pileski. I'm the City Auditor. Bill Grace, Mayor.
Chris Eichenlaub, Safety Service Director.
Mike Locke, Co-Counsel at Large.
Kevin Brubaker, Counsel at Large.
Donna Mitchell, 6th Ward City Council.
Ken Burkhardt, 7th Ward.
Gary Gibbs, 3rd Ward.
Larry Tanner, 1st Ward.
Vic Stewart, Counsel at Large.
Tom Callahan, Counsel at Large.
Terry Schilling, Law Director.
Forrest Bullocks, 2nd Ward.
No, Vice Secretary.
Now, the ones on the committee would be Mr. Gibbs, Mr. Tanner, Mr. Stewart, and Mr. Callahan. So we will be voting on the issues. Okay, and before we get started, we're going to have some hot topics tonight. I would like to ask everyone to try to refrain from calling names or getting obnoxious with anyone, because I know the subjects are going to be hot, but it's something that we have to discuss. We try to do that in a civic manner. So with that, I will go to our first item, which is remarks from the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Auditor Pileski will be laying out his, I believe his plan is to lay out the state of the city finances, both our current picture as well as touching on our projected revenue estimates as has been described in prior meetings, followed by Director Eichenlaub is going to address how we intend to manage this year's budget given the declining revenue that we're having to operate the city within. The cuts that are going to be laid out are dramatic, they're severe, they're unpleasant, and cuts that none of us want to see take place in our city. However, finances as they are require us to make such cuts. We've looked at many other items. Many cuts have been made throughout this year in early parts, discussions and earlier budget discussions and adjustments along the way. The cuts that are being presented are having made all of those cuts, and to address the shortfall that we're experiencing now, they also are setting the stage and leading into the path that where we will have to pursue to meet next year's budget projected declines. So, this is the cuts that are going to be outlined by Mr. Eichenlaub will be immediately to get us through this year, but also set the stage for even more, more severe cuts next year. As severe as these cuts are, they pale in comparison to what is scheduled for next year. The only possible exception to the cuts for next year are weighing in the balance with the income tax measure that is scheduled for the November ballot. Should it pass, most of these cuts will not be necessary. But right now the prospects are challenging at best, and we need to be prepared to make those cuts. So I'll yield the balance of my comments to that discussion, but Mr. Pileski and Director Eichenlaub will take it from here.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Auditor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to start out by putting up the July monthly financial report on the screen, which was sent to Council a couple of weeks ago. What this shows is all the different funds that we use to account for the city's revenue and expenditures, the very first one being the general fund. As you can see, the beginning balance at the beginning of July was $1,566,578. We received $2,136,499. We spent $3,756,495. So the final column represents cash on hand less any accruals for pensions. So in the use column, there's going to be pension costs that have been expended but not yet paid. Thus, when you factor that in, we have slipped into the red in the general fund. And I've been with the city auditor's office for 24 years, and I'll never recall us being in the red in the general fund. The other fund to take note on is the third one, the State Highway Fund. And this is the fund that we purchase road salt from for, salting the roads during the winter time. And typically we have to subsidize this with general fund monies every couple of years. Last year was a particularly tough winter, and we spent everything that we had in there. And as you can see, we only receive about $12,700 per month. Where that comes from is 7.5% of the gasoline tax that we receive from the state goes into that fund. Now, we're starting the winter season with $2,300 in that fund, so it's not going to buy much road salt. And right now, we don't have any monies appropriated in the general fund to transfer into that fund, so that becomes a big issue as well. The next slide is going to be the monies received from the Regional Income Tax Agency in August. As you can see, if you go over to the August column, we were down 16.36% in the general fund and 16.44% in the police levy fund, which is a special income tax. That equates to a drop of $228,749 in the general fund and $39,310 in the police levy fund. We are going to be receiving our first distribution in September tomorrow, and we contacted Rita today, and that distribution is going to be down 6.62% from the distribution on September 1 of last year. So it's not down as much, but still down a considerable amount. Back on August the 5th, I sent a letter to the Lorain County Budget Commission requesting that our certificate of estimated resources be lowered by $466,044 in the general fund, and that was processed. And the county also had to lower our certificate of estimated resources by $187,281 because local government funding is coming in lower than anticipated. That money comes from the state through the county to the various cities, villages, and townships in the county. So our reduction was $187,281. After going through the revenues after August, I feel it's necessary that I have to send another letter dropping the revenue by $450,000 in the general fund. What that means is that that will not be accepted unless the appropriation equals the certificate of estimated resources. So we would have to lower our appropriation in the general fund by $450,000 to equal the amount that I want to lower the certificate by. On the expenditure side, there's one budget in the general fund that is needs a big shot in the arm, and that's the fire department. I've been through their budget. We have 9 pays to go, and based on that, I feel that we're going to need $300,000 to add to the fire department's budget. I talked it over with the chief, and he feels that we can move approximately $76,000 up from operating and capital, but that still leaves the $224,000 that we will need to give to the fire department if they want to get through the end of the year. Some of that has been overtime. They were appropriated $200,000 for overtime. They've had some big fires like the college fire and the house fire. And right now they've spent $210,000 on overtime with still 9 pays to go. So if you choose to give them a shot in the arm of $224,000 and taking into consideration the $450,000 that we have to cut because I'm going to lower the revenue estimates, you're looking at reducing the general fund budget by $675,000 from other departments. Not much good news. I'm hoping that, our revenue starts to go up in income tax, but it isn't looking like it so far. Like I said, tomorrow's is going to be down 6.6%. Not as bad, but August was the 3rd worst month of the year, and it was devastating to us. So that's the news for the night.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Auditor.